This is the Georgia Farm Monitor. Since 1966, your source for state and national agribusiness news, and features for farmers and consumers about Georgia's #1 industry, agriculture. The Georgia Farm Monitor is produced by the state's largest general farm organization, the Georgia Farm Bureau. Now, here are your hosts, Ray DeLessio and Kenny Burgamy.
The latest ag news and the voice of Georgia farmers. It is who we are. It is what we do. Welcome to another fun-filled edition of the Farm Monitor. I'm Ray DeLessio.
And I'm Kenny Burgamy. As always, we've got another great show for you in store today. Coming up, travel with us as we head to Sylvania for the annual Georgia Peanut Tour. Damon Jones on why the industry is feeling good about this year's crop.
Also on the program, urbanization and its effect on family farms. It's something this Bryan County farmer is speaking out against. What he says needs to be done in order to protect future generations.
And then later, bet you've never seen a cotton gin like this before. In fact, it'll soon be the only one of its kind in the world. These stories and so much more start right now on the Farm Monitor.
Speaking of cotton, the countdown to the 2018 harvest has officially begun here in Georgia, but it hasn't been an easy journey leading up to it. The Monitor's John Holcomb explains the obstacles growers have had to deal with and what kind of crop experts are expecting this year.
As we enter into October, that means it's just about time to harvest cotton. But it hasn't been an easy journey for producers to get to this point. There have been quite the challenges this year that started from day one when it was time to put the seeds in the ground.
The big issue's been rainfall. We've had a lot of rainfall that's been timely and ultimately been a lot what you call too much at too often at times. You know, we started the planting season off normally, and about middle of May, which is about, halfway through our planting window, we had a lot of rain that kept a lot of guys out of the field and slowed planting to the point where we have a lot of later planted cotton than we typically do.
As the season progressed, the rains never really did ease up.
We continued to have rain. It's dried off here at the very end for some of us. Some places dried out earlier than others, but in general, we've had a wet weather crop. And a lot of times that means good things, but it doesn't always.
When it isn't a good thing is when growers can't get their equipment out into the fields.
We've been delayed on putting out fertilizers, been delayed in putting out pesticides and that kind of thing.
Whitaker is hopeful, though, that this year is going to be a good one for producers in Georgia after not having to deal with some of the problems like they did last year.
I think all in all, we'll have a better year than a lot of them. I think hopefully we'll have a good year. Last year was tough for us from a standpoint of a hurricane and an issue with insects and whiteflies.
Producers haven't had to deal with a lot of whiteflies this year, and experts say that can be attributed to this past year's winter.
Well, I think we just had less whiteflies due to a winter kill. If we go back to last January, we had two pretty good cold snaps where we got down in the low 20s, and we saw a lot of mortality in the adult stage of whiteflies. It did not eliminate whiteflies, but it got it back to a more manageable number.
Robert says that the weather we've had this year during the growing season has also kept down the whitefly problem.
Another factor that has helped keep the numbers down is we just had frequent rainfall. Literally from the time we planted this crop until just recently. And when we get these thunderstorms, as the cold weather is detrimental to adult whiteflies, so are these heavy thunderstorms.
However, growers aren't in the clear with pests just yet, especially if you have late planted cotton.
One of the things we'd really like to encourage growers to do is to defoliate cotton and harvest that in a timely manner. There are a lot of reasons to do that. Just preserving quality, but when we think about whiteflies, the whiteflies that are reproducing in cotton right now are seed for whiteflies we're going to deal with in 2019.
Roberts is just grateful for the great year we've had and wants to encourage growers to get ready for next year.
We're just fortunate. Insects hadn't been a major issue for us. Just want to encourage growers to make sure they have scouts lined up for next year so we can make good decisions managing insects.
Reporting in Tifton for the Farm Monitor, I'm John Holcomb.
Switching commodities now. Recently, more than 160 farmers, industry leaders, and businessmen gathered in the southeast corner of the state for the annual Georgia Peanut Tour. It was an event designed not only to give the latest updates, but also walk the visitors through the process of taking the peanuts from the field to the market. Damon Jones has that story.
Each and every year, the Georgia Peanut Tour draws visitors from all over the world to get a first-hand look at how one of the state's signature crops gets from the field to the shelves. It gives growers and researchers a chance to educate those in attendance as well as promote their product.
People who have less and less connection to rural areas and agriculture, we need to inform those folks. We have a good message. We need to get it out there. And we need to do a better job. But certainly this gives people who have got a bit more interested, got the time, they come on this tour, and they get to see basically all of the aspects of the peanut industry.
And that includes all of the new technology, which has been a major reason why yields continue to increase year by year.
If you look when I started about 2001, 2002, our yields were about 4,000 pounds per acre in a good peanut field. Now in some of our peanuts in the past 18 years, we've gone from 4,000 pounds per acre to 8,000 pounds per acre.
However, this year has been a challenging one as wet weather right in the middle of planting season has left some uncertainty heading into harvest.
We were planting early and things looked real good, and then we got an extraordinary amount of water in the latter part of May. We got 17 days with rain with about 13 inches, and that set the crop back some, but the early crop looks pretty good. I'm not too sure how well the later crop that we planted almost a month later is going to do, because when the ground got that wet, you just can't get back in the field.
But the news isn't all bad, as the heavy rains have provided some benefits for the farmers.
But good rainfall has meant that even our non-irrigated fields are getting ample moisture. Another big benefit is we're able to grow the crop well, and perhaps one of the most important reasons is aflatoxin, which is a problem wherever peanuts are grown and wherever corn is grown. Having good rainfall is going to reduce the impact of aflatoxin in our Georgia crop in 2018.
After 2 straight years of record-setting yields, this crop is expected to be a little lighter. But that doesn't mean growers shouldn't be optimistic heading into their harvest.
2018 crop will be a good crop. I think that the weather's worked against us a little bit. I don't think it's going to be a great crop, but it will be a good crop. But there's always room for improvement. What will remain of this crop is how much disease is going to impact it, how much the late planting date affected it, and what about the conditions at harvest as we move forward.
These that we've dug here earlier look like they're certainly 2 tons or better, 4,000 pounds or better. These out here I think we're going to pick today, I think are probably close to 5,000 pounds. Again, I have not really pulled any, and of course just pulling a clump or two in a peanut field does not give you a good idea of what's out there. But it'll be a couple of weeks before we'll have an idea on what these later peanuts are.
While the end of the peanut season is near, there is still plenty of work to be done if growers want to maximize their yield. In fact, there are a couple of things in particular they need to be paying close attention to.
First thing is to make sure they follow the maturity of the crop. Make sure they're digging those peanuts when they got the right maturity to make sure they get the top yields and the top grade. Second thing is to continue to manage that crop up until the time of harvest. We've had a lot of diseases this year. Wet weather means more diseases. Manage that crop for diseases and other problems up until harvest, but make sure they're on time with their harvest, and that's done by checking the maturity of the crop.
Reporting from Sylvania, I'm Damon Jones for the Farm Monitor.
Here's a question. Are you tired of seeing farms lost to big business or farmers forced to sell their land? Well, you're not alone. When we come back, a heartfelt story of one man's fight to protect his family legacy.
Hi, my name is Kristen Navarra. I'm a faculty member in Poultry Science, and I work primarily on endocrinology. Stress and reproductive hormones are my favorite. Well, primarily sex is of course determined by what sex chromosomes you inherit, but it appears that it's a lot more complicated because specifically in birds, it appears that the social context and triggers and environmental triggers, social triggers can actually influence whether a female donates a W or a Z chromosome and influence the ultimate sex that she produces. And so that opens a huge range of things that we need to be looking at to understand why a female produces a male or a female, and ultimately maybe how to control that. When we knew that females were able to adjust sex ratios according to environmental conditions, our first thought was, well, what is the hormone that responds to those environmental conditions? And that's stress hormones. And so we believe that those stress hormones were what were mediating this effect on sex ratios. And it's particularly important because we have these 2 strains of chickens. We have layer flocks and we have broiler flocks. And in each one, it's very important whether you're male or female. Layer chicks need to be female to lay eggs. And broiler chicks need to be male because those are the only ones who produce enough meat to be lucrative to raise. Of course, that's what we eat. And so the poultry industry would love it if we could produce a flock, all females for the layer side and all males for the broiler side. And that's what we're working on. We know that female birds in the wild have this amazing ability to alter the sexes of their offspring without our help. And so we want to harness that mechanism so that we could use it potentially in the industry to create the sexes that we need for those different industries. So right now in the short term, we're trying to find a treatment simply because we know that the birds have this ability, and we know that they have this ability in response to the hormonal treatments that we've been giving them. The problem with using hormones, though, is that in the poultry industry, you are not allowed to use hormones. It is banned by the FDA. So any treatment that we use in the industry has to be a non-hormonal treatment. So what we're trying to do now is to use our hormones to elicit the effects that we want, and then go a step further and figure out what genes those hormones are turning on and off. Once we figure that out, we can develop a non-hormonal treatment that can be used in the poultry industry to get the effects that we want to see.
Urbanization, housing developments, and the increasing demand for more and more distribution centers. Just some of the factors that have played a part in the number of farms that continue to shrink with each passing year. It's an issue that Bryan County farmer Sean Page is passionate about. In fact, as the County Farm Bureau president and lone remaining full-time farmer in Bryan County, Page is letting his voice be heard, speaking out about his love of agriculture and at times the need to just say no.
It's one of those things you just love to do it, you know, and it's so peaceful out there, you know, you're doing your own thing, you ain't got to worry about cars, you know, or people bothering you. Sometimes you turn the phone off, you know, and just enjoy the farm life and doing the work and watching the crops grow and you know, knowing you're doing something for the, I feel like, the betterment of the country or, you know, your community at least. And it's just really a good thing, and I just love it. It's just something that you have to love to do to be able to do it, and it's just a passion of mine, always has been. The farm was started in 1956 by my grandfather, Hewlin Page, and my grandmother, and they ran it until his passing in 2008, and she continued to run it. My daddy kind of took the lead as the operations, and the farm was still in her name, and he ran it until his passing in 2011, and then it all became my responsibility, so I took it over. It was all still hers, but I was running it, and I ran it until she decided to retire January the 1st of 2013. I thought I knew how to farm, but I didn't realize I didn't know hardly anything until it was all dumped in my lap. So I got a real quick education, and thankfully I had some very good close friends that helped me get through that first year. It's kind of like a blur, but if it hadn't been for them, we'd probably be out of business, but they got me through it, and here we are today. You have developers they're buying up agriculture land. When the land comes up for sale, they're buying it, and they're wanting to develop it into these subdivisions and put these cookie cutter homes on it. And I have one literally at the landline here. They're trying to put in several more around me, already have put in several, and it's really a concern. I mean, I kind of see this farming operation fading through the years, you know. I want my son and my daughters to be able to do the same thing I'm doing, but I don't know if it's going to be an opportunity for them by the time they get to the age to be able to do it. I just want people to know that, you know, there's developments and all, and I know there needs to be some amount of growth everywhere, I understand that, but too much can be a bad thing in my opinion, and I want people to understand how it's affecting my livelihood, and it's going to affect my surrounding neighbors, the people that have been here for years and years, longer than I have, you know, and I just want to get that message out there so that everybody will be involved in their community and voice their opinion, because if you don't voice your opinion, nobody knows how you feel on the situation. You know, and I try to express my concerns when I can. I try to do it in a polite way, I guess you'd say, you know. I don't try to ruffle no feathers or anything, but I want people to know how I feel about something. I guess that was a trait I got from my daddy. Anybody that would know him would understand, but you know, if you don't express your concerns to our community leaders and all these people, then you're just gonna sit back and get run over, and that's not what you want. If you want things to go a certain way, you gotta help direct it that way. To take away from this story, I guess, be involved in your community. Know what's going on around you. Know your community leaders. Know how to get in contact with them. If you see something going that you think you have concerns about, voice it to them. That's what they're there for. You elect them, use them to your advantage, you know. And you're not always going to agree with them, but that's life. Nobody's going to agree on everything. So, you know, that would be my takeaway, is to be more involved and be more aware of what's going on around you.
Don't forget, if you missed any part of this story or others on today's program, you can still see them in their entirety at our YouTube channel, the Georgia Farm Monitor. Plenty of stuff to choose from. In fact, the archive goes all the way back to 2009.
And while you're there, keep clicking and like the Georgia Farm Monitor Facebook page. Send us some feedback as well. If you have a story idea or if you just want to leave us a comment or suggestion, send us a message either on Facebook or the address on your screen, that is news@farm-monitor.com. Now, when we come back, the unique and painstaking steps this Georgia company takes to meet the demand for fresh, locally grown mushrooms. A trip to Noonan, Georgia, when the Farm Monitor continues.
Over 3 years ago, I came down here to visit a friend that owned the nursery, and he introduced me to his business partners where we were starting to grow mushrooms. They started out with 2 greenhouses, maybe 500 pounds a month, and now we've grown 3 years later into picking 150,000 pounds a month. Every day it starts out in the process of coming in and harvesting the larger mushrooms off the logs out of the greenhouses. This greenhouse right here has over 12,000 logs in it, and I have 21 greenhouses. It's a very labor-intensive process. Everything's done by hand, sorted by hand, packaged by hand, and shipped around the country, mainly here in Georgia to major food service companies.
Little bit overwhelming to begin with. Again, you never know that something like this exists in this area, and then you get a tour and walk around here. It's something else. They supply us with all of our shiitake and our oyster mushrooms. They're locally grown. We've got trucks that are out in the area. We come by, pick them up from here and take it back to our warehouse and distribute them all across Georgia. We've got all the customers from Buckhead, Atlanta, a lot of the hotels, the larger hotels, and even down to your smaller mom and pops who want that farm to table, that locally grown items.
I met Scott 3 or 4 years ago, actually. It came out here and it's grown up quite a bit. And when you think about local farms, you don't really think about this, like shiitake and oyster mushrooms, like super fresh. And all my customers, they buy from me because they know it's going to be the freshest thing possible. I turn them on to Scott because I know it's going to be the freshest possible. I know he's picking these mushrooms right off the log. They're going in a box, they're going on my truck, and they're coming straight to your table.
Well, the process starts out as this is a ground up applewood log. It's ground up and pressed back into this form here and insert the spores in these holes right here and then flash frozen and shipped all around the country. Once we get the logs in here, we bring them and put them on the racks and soak them with all the sprinklers for 5 hours. 10 days later, you'll see little bitty mushrooms like this popping up, and every day that mushroom will be this size, this mushroom will be that size, and they grow very, very fast. You actually have to sort them out, take this mushroom away so this mushroom grows perfect. So I don't want anything really to turn into a number 2 mushroom. I want everything to turn into a number 1. It's called a flush for the first pick, the second pick, and the third pick. This log will last me about a month. I could possibly get 2 pounds to 3 pounds off one log. And one greenhouse is 12,000 logs. After the process is done, we strip the logs out of the greenhouses and we recycle them through a nursery. Breaking Ground Nursery uses them for fertilizer, and I have a couple of big landscaping companies that come and use the logs for fertilizer under fresh mulch. We're going to keep growing. Right now we have 21 greenhouses and we're fixing to put up 21 more. So I'll be able to service the whole southern United States. Right now people are pulling mushrooms that I grow out of New Jersey, which takes a while to pick them, pack them, and ship them. So if I ship to a customer here in Georgia, it's probably a mushroom that was picked that morning.
Finally this week, we end the show where we started, and that's talking about cotton. Not Georgia cotton, but Texas cotton.
Yeah, from our friends at Texas Farm Bureau comes the story of Adobe Wall's cotton gin. At a price tag of $14.5 million, we think you'll agree the year-old gin was well worth this investment.
Everything's bigger in Texas. When it comes to cotton gins, the old saying is true. Adobe Wall's gin near Spearman is now the largest cotton gin in the U.S., and they're not stopping there.
When we do the expansion, they tell us it'll be the biggest gin in the world. That's just what we've been told by the people that, there's only like 4 gin manufacturers, so they know what's everywhere.
Plant 2 came online in December, adding 4 more gin lines to the 5 already running in Plant 1. That's a grand total of 9 stands under one roof, ginning cotton for the upper Texas Panhandle, the most in the country. And when they add 2 more lines before next season, Adobe Walls will be the largest cotton gin in the world. Not bad for an area that didn't have a gin a little over a decade ago.
We started in '06. Cotton started moving up in this country probably in 2004, 2003. Traditionally grain country. Cotton was just creeping north as the varieties got shorter. Nobody really thought we could grow it up here, but they started kind of right on I-40 and then it just kept moving north.
Falling grain prices, conserving water, new cotton varieties. These were all factors that transformed this crop from a novelty in this part of the state to so many farmers' bread and butter. Farmers like Justin Garrett. He and his family started growing cotton in 2003. They were instrumental in the vision that would become Adobe Walls.
And we decided just with our farm experience in Spearman that was an area that was going to really explode with cotton. So we figured we better just put our hat in the ring and help build a gin.
They were right. Around 50 farmers threw in together to build the gin. The timing was perfect. Adobe Walls has gone from ginning 60,000 bales at the beginning to 142,000 last year. This year, they'll be close to 300,000.
For the first 6 to 8 years, it was mainly the same growers every year. A few come in, come out, but this year was a wholesale change. We got a lot of people in here that never grown cotton before, and a lot of them that said they never would.
The farmer has to wait until his cotton is ginned before he gets paid, since it depends on how the cotton's graded. Last year it took until March 3rd, but Adobe Walls wants to do it quicker. That's why they built Plant 2. But this year they're looking at twice the amount of cotton as last year. The 2 new lines and new press they'll install before next season will help, allowing them to gin 100 to 120 bales an hour.
10 years ago, there were a lot of naysayers. It's taken a lot of work by a lot of people and a lot of commitment by a lot of farmers to get us to where we are. And nobody went into this deal to be the biggest gin in the U.S. We just want to gin cotton and get it done in a timely manner and turn it to money for these farmers.
As Texas' most northern gin, Adobe Walls even gets some cotton from Oklahoma. But every bale is pressed with that special Texas touch. These Panhandle farmers are proud to grow the fabric of Texans' lives. With the Texas Farm Bureau, Ed Wolf, Spearman.
Pretty impressive. That's going to do it for this week's edition of the Farm Monitor.
Now, before we go, a reminder for all the latest ag info regarding food, great recipes, and what's happening out on the farm. Be sure and check out our Twitter, Facebook, and Pinterest pages. You'll stay informed and see what's up in the world of farming, plus with us on the show.
Take care, everybody. We'll see you next week right here on the Farm Monitor.
As always, have a great week.